Engage University. I am here with Jocelyn and Aaron Freeman. How are y'all today?
Awesome.
Excellent. Love this as a bonus.
I know, tons of bonus episodes during COVID-19. And I really think they're just amazing, more informational and better advice than really just a wedding planning process. And I love that I met you through the wedding planning journey. A good friend of ours connected us. But I really wanted to give you guys some time to introduce yourselves. We're definitely want my listeners and my watchers to know who you are, what you do. So I'm going to kind of give the mic to y'all, and then I'll come back with a few questions and just give our listeners and watchers some amazing advice.
I'll actually let Jocelyn do that part, but I want to say to all the audience, guess what? We were engaged at one time too.
Yay!
So we have been exactly where you're at, having some of the same questions, having some of the same, like, even feelings like, oh my gosh, this can only be great. So we've been there, by the way, just so you know, so we can definitely speak to that season of life you're in.
Yes. And it's something that, our whole passion and work. So for all of you who don't know us, the Freemans, and you don't even have to remember our first names. A lot of people just call us the Freemans. It really comes from our experience of getting ready to get married. And to be honest, before meeting Aaron and before we knew we were going to get engaged, a lot of the things I had to become self-aware of was how I was repeating patterns of what I saw my parents doing in their marriage. And my parents went through a really intense divorce. And it was crazy because they loved each other so much. Like, I mean, people would say, we're envious of your relationship. So, and they were best friends. And then all of a sudden just went through this really intense divorce. So I remember being a kid. And then when I started to really be in a committed relationship with Aaron, to go, just counting on love is not enough. Obviously, because they loved each other a lot and it didn't work. And that's one of our kind of main taglines, is that the hard truth is love is not enough. And so that who we are really is the possibility of couples having the relationship skills to weather any season, any storm, any challenge. And who we are, I say that, like, we could tell you all the things we like to do and like our bio, but like our purpose and what we do day in and day out is have it become mainstream and normal to proactively work on your relationship. Not that there needs to be something wrong, or like there's some people who feel embarrassed to talk about going to counseling. We're out to shift that conversation and eventually get to the point where people would go, you haven't done any preparing for marriage work? That's so odd, right? That just becomes the new normal. So anything you'd add about who we are or introducing us?
I'll just vibe in with what you were saying. And for couples, might not be thinking about anything around counseling or we need help, but it really is about, think of the amount of time, energy, and effort and money you're going to put into the wedding day. Yet, what are you putting in place to have the lifetime of the marriage be just as strong? So it'd be almost like buying a $33,000 car, because that's the average cost of a wedding, and saying, well, we got it. We're not going to wash it. We're not going to do maintenance. We're not going to even try to have it perform. So what could you expect except that car's going to start to deteriorate? So it's like, when you put the same amount into the growth and strength of the marriage forever as you did into the single day, which is important, of the wedding day.
And I love what you guys said, it's making it the new norm, because when most couples get engaged, it's an excitement, it's a period of like, okay, let's start to celebrate and plan a wedding, and they skip the season of engagement. So one of the things I try to do with my podcast is, yes, educate couples on the proper time to plan a wedding, but before that, there's just kind of 5 key steps and topics that they should go through. And you guys talked a lot about that. And one of the things is like background. How did they grow up? What was their upbringing? What are their views on relationships? A lot of times people skip that part to financial, stability. A lot of times they think, oh, well, we'll just figure it out once we get married. But you're also, not talking about, can we even afford to get married? Other things are compatibility. A lot of times, people are think, well, this is the best it's going to be, or I'm already getting to this age, or we've been together for this long. And so what I try to do is create the new norm and say that it's okay. You don't have to go to a therapist. There are other people like yourselves that are experts in that industry, or in that in the relationship field, that can give you that advice, and they need to invest. A lot of couples do not want to invest in growing their relationship skills. And that later on leads into, like you said, divorce. Love cannot, win it all. And I've been through it, friends who've been through it. So I really love what you guys do. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about what it is that you do and how this can be incorporated for couples who are either thinking about getting engaged or engaged right now. And I think, also couples who've just gotten married or fresh out of that honeymoon stage. How do you work with couples?
Yeah, so kind of logistically, we work with couples mostly online right now during this season. We actually, it's funny because we've been hosting in-person events for couples for 3 years now. And this last year held a couples workshop every single month in Arizona. And we were about to take it on tour. Like literally we're planning out Vegas and then the next stops after that. And then all of a sudden it was like, nope, the virus. So you can come to a future event. We host couples workshops. We will take it on tour, and we do have a lot of online resources. So couples can start as simple as like starting with our book that they can get for free and join our book club, all the way to if they know they want to do more, we have courses that actually can act as your preparing for marriage course, which is awesome. And you can do it at your own pace. And then if people like more than just even self-paced, we also work selectively with some couples privately. And so that would be a few couples that we open up spots with as well. So we have many different ways, self-paced. We even have our workshop that we did in person is recorded, and you can get instant access to that. And it's like really professionally filmed, and the production is incredible. So couples could also participate in it. That can act as your preparing for marriage workshop, which we did a preparing for marriage workshop. Which tell them about how that impacted your decision to marry me.
Oh, yes.
Well, it's a spot that many men could probably relate to. And it was this question of, well, we have been dating for a little while. How do I know this is the person? It's like when you're standing there, I mean, dating is one thing, but to make that shift into, I'm going to propose, we're going to get engaged, or we're going to move towards marriage, it's like, how do I raise my level of certainty? And for me, I mean, my personal background is one where I grew up a particular religion that the way I heard it was, you better not have sex before you get married. That's going to be a sin. So I was just like scared for my soul at that point. So once I got older, I had chose not to have sex before I got married. And then as I got older, and I like am the only one that I know, like shame started to build up. I didn't want to talk about it. And so, here I am again, like, how do I get the certainty to say that this is the person? And so we found like preparing for marriage, which gave us an assessment, and it assessed all of the areas of our relationship. A lot of times you think of, oh, it's just a relationship. But as you mentioned already too, there's finances, there's social, leisure, there's your mindset, there's your physical wellness, there's your spirituality, there's your network of friends, there's your roles and responsibilities, there's a lifestyle that you want to live. And those are questions I never thought of.
Mm-hmm.
So to take an assessment and find out what are our strength and growth areas together, how do our dynamics play into this life? And it's like, after I went through that, I knew with 100% certainty that Jocelyn was one. And that really changed my life to get that clarity and awareness of like an assessment and where we're strong, but also where we could grow in the skills. That had me be like, okay, I know I'm all the way in.
And it's funny you mentioned the assessment too, because I remember prior to us going through our own work and preparing for marriage and taking an assessment to really look at the health of our relationship, I remember thinking that what you should base off like getting married to someone was, do you like the thing? Do you along the majority of the time, right? Like you both want to be successful, you both value the same funny movies, you both like long walks on the beach, all those surface level kind of checklist items that people mostly look for. No one ever sat me down and said, you know what, some of those deeper questions that you want to talk about before you choose to literally get married. If you think about it, some people take more time picking a car than really checking in on, is it the right decision for us to get married? And you are signing a very important contract when you're getting married. You merge money, you're living in, like, that's serious, but most people just kind of think that them having the same likes and dislikes will work. It's so much more than that. I think really having the question of how will we handle conflict? Are you going to take responsibility of your emotions? If things come up for us that are challenging, will you stick through it, or are you going to want to give up? And so I just want to add that it really changed the way we think about how to pick a partner that you choose to marry.
I want to stop you there because you said a lot of great things. You both did. One of the things that I love is that most people don't spend enough time on dating and getting to know their partner. You know, you go to school for how many years before you go to college? You know, when you become a lawyer, you have to prepare before you get into law school. And a lot of times couples don't do that with their relationship. And again, it could be, there's so many reasons why. Also society, I know, pressures a lot of couples into like this is the norm. You date, you get engaged, you get married, and then everything kind of falls into place. So love that you said that. Also want to know, because listeners and watchers are going to want to know, how long did you guys date for? How long was your engagement? And how long have you been married?
Good question.
Oh.
Do you know the numbers?
I know the dates. I know the dates, so I'll have to do the math. So in 2014, July 4th, 2014 is when we had our first date.
Yep.
No, 13. Sorry, let me go back. January 4th, 2013 was our very first date. And then we got married on September 11th, 2015. And I know that our engagement was about 9 months.
9 months, yes. And what's funny about our first date, I had another date planned that same night that we met. So we went on our first date. I had a date number 2.
I didn't know at the time.
I wasn't even a big dater, you guys. So don't. It wasn't like I was the type of person that was going, out with 10 people at once. It was just.
How many dates do you have that week?
Like 4 or 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 4 or 5 that week, and another one the same day we had.
And it was just this short period of time. Like I was actually in the best place of my life when I attracted in these people. And that was one side note. That was different for me when I wasn't in the best place. I attracted the not right people, right? I attracted what I was a match for. And so when I was in the best place, like I loved myself, I was confident, I attracted amazing people. But we met him and we had our first date. I remember calling my stepmom in the, what's it called? Carport. Why can't I think of the name? Parking lot. And I told her, I said, I feel something for him that I've never felt. Like it really, I know it sounds cheesy, but I feel like he's the partner. Should I cancel this other date? And she said, do it. So I canceled the other date, and I just knew that I
well,
really
and of course I was on the same page, right? Like I knew it as soon as I met her.
Nope.
No.
Okay, good. That makes me feel better. Good. Let me hear your side of that story.
It was totally not that way for me, right? Like the way I grew up, which I kind of gave some indication to, growing up feeling like sex and intimacy was something I was supposed to avoid. Very few girlfriends throughout that whole time. So that was, I was 28 when then Jocelyn and I met. And me being the one that was mostly broken up with, and I had been cheated on. So this was a thing that I didn't even know if relationships were going to be meant for me. Maybe I'm not meant to be married. I don't want to get hurt again. So, I mean, it took me a while. So I was very subconsciously like at a distance. A few months in, I tried to break up with Jocelyn. But speaking to what she said, she was in a place where she had been working on her personal development, her mindset, her emotional intelligence, if you will. And even me saying I want to break up, she hung up the phone and then called me back. And I know your thought process was, I know this is coming from fear from him. And if I don't pick up, I will regret this. So she had called me back and said, you know what? Breaking up doesn't work for me. And it was immediately for me, though, when she said that, it triggered something in me that said, I don't have to be afraid of getting hurt. This person is really here for me. And I had to think about it. In a second, I knew that I was back in. And I said, I'm back in. And that really changed a lot of things for us. And then we did the preparing for marriage and built the skills. But that's just to show we were not exactly on the same page. She happened to know that I was the one, but it took me a while to go through my past, through my hurts and my really subconscious beliefs to be able to move up and kind of meet her where she was at. So she led that season of our relationship. And that's something for engaged couples. You're going to have periods where each of you is going to be called to lead that season or that area of life. And then later on, I led in a different area. So just kind of see that as if you're in this together, committed, know that you can also have one person lead a certain period of time or area and vice versa too.
Oh God, I love that. Those last 2 minutes were fantastic. So one of the things that I like that you said about Jocelyn is she kind of did not give you an option. And I think that shows a lot of what your marriage is now. Like that shows the person that she was going to be for you then, and that she's going to, be for you now, which that's beautiful. And I love that. And another thing is, yes, we lead in different seasons in our life. You both have amazing personalities. You can see it on camera. You can see it when you talk. And I can see other couples who are like, oh, well, one of us has to be the alpha, or one of us has to be head of the household. And, in my experience, that doesn't work. You are equals, and there are going to be certain times, certain seasons that one of you has to let it go. That's partnership. That's being committed. And so I love that you said both of those things, because couples don't see that. One thing I want to ask you is, how did you meet? Was it through like friends? Was it through church? Was it through a dating app? I mean, because it's so different now how people date. And I know, and especially right now, I know people are like, well, what do? I still want to, put myself out there, but I can't. And so there's so many apps. How did you meet? Kind of give me the story around that.
So we met at a gym, which was one of my dream come trues, because I wasn't the type of person that liked to go out, at least in that season, maybe in my college years. And so I was like, I'm not going to go to the bar and meet someone. And I thought the best place could be the gym, right? I love going to the gym. I want to be with someone who wants to be healthy. And so we met at the gym. And quick story about it, he was working out with a friend, and his friend was kind of hitting on me.
Can I say something about that?
And well, in my mind, I was like,
it wasn't even my friend.
Oh,
I just
yes.
happened to know him, and that was like the first time we ever worked out together.
So I thought he was the friend, and I was like, no, I don't want him to hit on me. I want him, meaning him. And then he finally came up to me and asked me for my email address, not my phone number, which I thought was awesome, very classy. And he emailed me, and we then went on that date, as we said, and then
for
canceled.
Brunch, by the way.
Yes, canceled the other date. And one thing I want to add to your remark about how do I date right now. So whether people are listening to this and they're wanting to date, they're even looking for that partner before getting engaged. And I know the majority of your audience is engaged and preparing for marriage. This is the time that you can't just focus on dating and planning the wedding. This is the time to do the inner work. So we can't do anything in the outer world right now, right? Like we just can't control that. You can't go on physical dates right now. You can't go to the wedding venue and plan that. And it might be like that for another minute or two, more than a minute. This is the time to do the inner work here as the individual. And then if you are in a relationship, doing the inner work on your partnership. And I just really encourage everyone to see that. I know it was so fun to plan our wedding and to do all those outward things and plan the flowers and all those. And just as much effort as we put into making that extraordinary day for our wedding day, which is one day out of your life, we probably doubled down on our effort of working on the inside here and the inside here.
Do you mind if I add one thing about the relationship?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so what Jocelyn was saying is so great that you do the inner work. And I just thought of this newly. We've never said it this way. Think of those of you that are listening, think of your relationship, and in the dating and engage phase, mostly what you're trying to do is get to know who they are now. And you're trying to figure out, basically, are you compatible? Are you a match to the person you are now? And that's fine. But you have to remember, what you also want to know is, who do they want to become?
Amen.
And that's probably the biggest piece that gets missed in the dating and engaged. You think we're just going to get on the same page of who we are now, but you never stay the same as an individual, and your relationship and marriage will never be the same either. So you have to start to get clear on who it is they see themselves becoming, and how do they see the marriage being a reflection of that. So you have to be having that conversation at the same time. That's where a lot of people get into trouble. You get a year in or two in, and it's like, well, you've known who each other are, but now you start the evolution, you start to change, and then that becomes frightening to the other person, rather than, oh, we had this conversation, we know where each other want to be and who we want to become.
It's like I made y'all read my ebook before you got on here. It's like everything. I only did 25 pages because most couples don't want to read a long book, but that's the number one thing is like, oh, you're not the person that I married. You've changed over the years. And I'm going, okay, well, we didn't change. Oh, well, we did change because we're supposed to, but we didn't talk about our 1 to 3 year plan. I'm not talking about 10 years down the road. I couldn't, 10 years ago and 20 years ago, I've been married twice. Like, I would have never thought that. But yes, you're looking at the right now, and you're not looking at, hey, after a year, or after, what are my goals? What I want, who do I want to become? So I want to talk about inner work. I'm taking tons of notes because you guys are, it's like perfect to what we teach, and what I tell couples they need to be working on before planning. I almost think that it's not fair to each other, but really not fair to yourself if you're not doing the inner work, because you're setting the tone, and you're setting yourself up to fail in a relationship, no matter what. I got married when I was 21. I had a baby at 22. It was great. He was the great right now, amazing father. But we became two completely different people. And it went back to, you were not the person that I married. You're changing. And of course, in your 20s, I mean, that's insane. But people are doing that in their 30s and 40s. And I feel like it's okay to take that time. If I would have done the inner work, we probably wouldn't have been compatible for each other. It just wouldn't have happened. Same thing with my second marriage. It took me 5 years to get married to my second husband, because I knew I didn't want to make the same mistake again. And we're coming and blending two families together. I had 2 children. So, you know, he wanted to propose very early on, and great advice from his father saying, you're not ready to take care of her and her family, and you're not at her level. And I wasn't ready to put myself in a situation where I was going to change for the other person, not because I wanted to change for myself. And I feel a lot of couples put themselves in that situation, that they compromise, they settle, and they go, well, this is the best it's going to be. Either they're engaged and they don't want to make a scene to not get married, which I feel a lot of couples can just break it up and that's okay, move on, or they get married, they end up having children, buying property, and it becomes a huge mess because they did not take the responsibility to work on themselves first, their mindsets, and then growth mindset together of, this is what we want to become. And if it's not right, then that's totally fine. There's another person out there for you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I love that you're saying all of that. 100%. And I really acknowledge you for taking that time before that second marriage to do that inner work. And here's the thing, because most couples are never taught this really important principle about relationship. Your relationship is not there to complete you. Your partner does not complete you. And that actually can attract for lack of a better word, a wounded relationship where there's a reliance on each other for happiness, for satisfaction. That's one of the mistakes that gets made. And the other thing that we aren't taught is that relationships are your greatest teachers, and they will mirror to you is that you have worked on yourself, right? So I didn't heal something around one of my family members cheating on another. And so I saw all men as cheaters. And until I faced that belief and that story, I kept attracting that. Men who weren't trustworthy, men who always kind of acted in a way that was inappropriate, and some that even cheated. And so I had to go, I've got to heal this within my relationship so that when I do get married, I'm not now jealous, untrusting of him, questioning him, and things like that. And for a lot of people, they don't do any of that pre-work. And then they get into the relationship and they're needing their partner, they're needing just all of this affirmation and really attracting in the experiences that show them where they didn't heal something from their childhood or from teen years or even things they observed. Anything you'd add about that self-work?
Oh, yeah, there's actually one famous phrase, actually comes from Wayne Dyer, for those that are familiar with him, but he talks about, if you squeeze an orange, what comes out? Orange juice. Why? Because that's what's inside. Lemon juice doesn't come out. Grapefruit juice doesn't come out. So that is to say that when someone puts pressure on you, and you'll start to feel pressures as you get into a marriage, things will come up, you'll have different views. As someone puts pressure on you, what comes out is not because that other person caused it, it's because that's what was inside. And so I just really love that analogy when we talk about inner work, that then like blame and point the finger when you have some emotion come out that gets triggered. It's like, that's not because of them. That's a place for you to look back and say, well, if that came from me, that must have been in there. So let me go and like look at why that is. And you can even invite your partner to say, hey, I mean, I don't know why that came out, but I would really like your help and support just to like help me work through that. I don't know where that came from. So getting into a conversation and dialogue where your partner is actually able to help you see why that was there, rather than you pointing the finger like, you caused me to feel that, this is your fault. And
Yep.
that's one of the analogies that I really love.
I like that. And I also like that you're gonna get what you attract. And a lot of times couples are not in the right time in their life to really be in a relationship, and they do attract what really they don't need. And I feel like that's the engagement period, is to figure that out. If you didn't have a long dating relationship before, and again, there's no right or wrong time frame for anyone. I always say that in all of my podcasts, because everyone's like, oh, Giovanna, like, we got married in 6 months and we've been married for 20 years. It's going to be different for everyone. But I think it's because they didn't stop to take the time to understand that, yes, you're going to change. Yes, we need to know what our goals in life are. We need to have a working relationship. It's always, and again, this is just something because it's not the norm. I think no one's made it the norm to say it's not this way. It's not she stays home, or, he's going to have the career. It's not like that anymore. And it won't ever be like that anymore. So until we, and I say we, like experts like us and you, make it the norm. When I started my podcast a year ago, people were like, what are you doing? Like, you're a wedding venue owner. I go, I'm doing it because I'm a wedding venue owner. And I sit here with hundreds of couples who are not ready to get married, but they're about to make a really big mistake in their life. And I want to save them for that. And I also feel that a lot of times, and couples have called me and said, we're just going to wait another year. Like, it's not that we didn't like you or the venue. Like, we just realized so many things. So I don't want to say the problem, but from not having the education and the resources, I said, you know what, I should create something for them. If it's a template, an ebook, a podcast, where they can really start to focus on who they are, who they want to be. And a lot of the times those $33,000 weddings end up being $15,000, $20,000, because they're like, oh, well, yeah, I want to travel too, or I want to have a house right after we get married, or yeah, we want to have children within the next 3 years. And what if we can't get pregnant? What if we need that money for, IVF treatment? There's so many things that people don't want to talk about, that cutting your one day that you spend all this time on will actually help you for the next, 1 to 3 years of your life. So I just think it's really important that there are those tools and those resources, and that people don't feel, especially men, and I hate to say that, men do not want to talk about their feelings because they were brought up like, oh, we're not going to do that. And when I hear you and Aaron, I'm like, oh my God, this is like phenomenal. If every relationship could be that way, just in speaking, because I have a great relationship with my husband now, but I knew who I was. I knew who I wanted to be, and I knew who I was going to become. And he was okay. And we talked about it over and over and over again, because I said, I will not change again. I may change and become, put something else on my plate, or, I'm a mom, so when my kids are older, I'm going to change the way I parent, but I'm not going to change who I am for another person. So I love what you guys are doing.
I wanted to actually speak a message to the men really quick, because I really relate to what you're saying. And I've talked to so many men now that say, oh, well, I'm just not emotional. Well, okay, I wasn't either. But what you should be saying, well, I haven't been emotional. I haven't expressed my emotion up until this point. You're not a fixed being. If you want to change that, you can change that. Now, it might take some time. So for me, I had only cried 5 times in my entire life up until I was like 30. One of them was when I found out that my teenage brother got his girlfriend pregnant, and everything is great now, so don't worry. But I cried at that time. I cried when I actually had a friend from high school, like, he killed himself, but I did not express any emotion. When I got into the relationship, I realized that it wasn't because I didn't have the capacity. I wanted that to come out more. So I went down a path of, how do I express emotion more? And it took me like 2 years, right? Even when there was a sad movie, I would feel like emotions start to rise, and my physiology would just stop it. Even more, while I was like, well, I'm not emotional. No, that's such a false illusion. It took me some time, but I allowed the emotion to come a little bit more. And then one day I cried. And sometimes it's crying out of like just being inspired. It might be about like experiencing yourself as a bigger version of yourself. It could be sadness. It could be, more emotional, but you can access that. You're not a fixed person. You just have to decide that that's who you want to be. And that's what's going to best serve your relationship. And we can all be emotional. We can all have that side of us come out. And I just want to invite men into that. If that's a path you want to go down, you can.
Yeah.
You're not fixed. It's not like, oh, I'm emotional or you can work that.
And to women, from the women's perspective, because actually I was just messaging with someone who sent a private note and said, how do I get my partner on board with growing? I want them to read the book, I want them to do the course with me. And you can think that your partner doesn't want to, but a lot of times it's the approach. So for any of you who are listening and going, my partner won't do any preparing for marriage work. My husband doesn't like any of that sappy stuff. It's likely, to be honest, your approach, how you're bringing it up. And that's why we actually have, of all of our book purchases, workshop registrations, courses, our book club for couples, 50% or more sometimes are initiated by men.
That's so awesome.
And so a lot of people in the relationship space say, oh, it's going to be the women that lead. And that story we don't believe in. And actually, I think part of why men are attracted to our brand is because of your leadership and how you do share emotion, but also that it's done in an approachable way, because what men don't want is to be fixed. Right. Or to be told that they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, or be forced to do something.
Or to be forced. Or, a lot of women unfortunately approach it like, you're just not good at communicating. So can you just do this relationship work with me? That's not going to excite a guy to be a part of that, right? So for all of you, and actually we have a podcast episode on how do I get my partner on board with personal development. And that's a great episode for all partners, really, where you think your partner is not interested in, but some ways that you can bring it up and start it in a new way. Because I promise you, if you bring it up the right way, men will be interested in it.
And I think you have to go back to what you said. You're going to get what you attract. So if you're having a conversation about it's one-sided, well, you attracted that. You were the one who wanted to be in that relationship. So you have to kind of hold yourself accountable as well to saying, like, it's not just the other person's fault. I obviously haven't either approached it correctly or I'm not communicating it correctly. Another reason why, at Just Engage University was born was because the wedding industry is completely female-sided, and I hate it. I think it's horrible because that day is a reflection of both couples. I meet with 75% brides, and I'm like, where's your fiance? Oh, he's going to let me do whatever I want. And I go, that's setting up the tone for the rest of your life. You're about to take this. So guess what's going to happen when you buy a house, when you have a kid, anything, then the expectation is, oh, just do it. And when they don't have any type of say or do, well, guess what's going to happen later on? You're going to hold that against your partner. You're going to say, oh, well, you told me I can do whatever I want. And that, to spend that much money, and something about the money, to plan something for so long that's mainly for one person, then what's the point? So again, I'm such a disruptor in my industry. It's like, I need to have the couple, the couple needs to be planning together. And no, you don't have to make it look like this magazine or like this Pinterest board. Forget all of that. It's your day. You want to have a picnic outside, right? Let's do a picnic outside. You want to have llamas at your wedding? Let's have llamas at your wedding. Like, it doesn't matter as long as it's a 50-50, because that's going to be also what you're planning for the rest of your life. So I love everything that you guys are saying. I will have that podcast episode in the show notes because I think that's going to be a great one. Let's talk a little bit about advice right now, like during COVID-19. Couples are at home. Before all of this, and again, there's a lot of couples that are in the essential businesses that are working. Me and my husband are working all the time, so we don't get to have that time off that everybody else has, but there are couples that do have more time. So if it's in the evening when one partner gets home, if it's on the weekend, I'm seeing it now just in the wedding industry in general. We're doing virtual everything, consultation, virtual tours. What advice would you give couples right now to take, that they cannot say, we just don't have the time? What would you say to them?
Well, and I love it. I want to approach your question from a couple of different places. First off, during this season, remember that this is a time that either is going to strain your relationship or strengthen it, all based on your choices. And here's the thing. Your partner might be more triggered than normal, more sensitive, more reactive, or maybe you're that one, or maybe you take turns, right? And so number one, just know that that's not that something is wrong in your relationship. It's just that you both have the opportunity to be able to, you know, the phrase hold space for each other, to be able to not react. So here's the thing. If your partner is reactive, short with you, triggered, don't react back, because that's just in a way sometimes a cry for help. They need to be reminded that everything's going to be okay. Fear is coming up, uncertainty is coming up, and that can start to show up in your relationship. So remember that your partner needs more support, more love, and same thing for you as well. So make sure you're talking about your emotions. And I actually did a post yesterday on, there's a difference between cohabitating during this time and actually connecting. And a lot of couples resonated because cohabitating is making sure you have food, the house is clean, you're both healthy, the kids have what they need, and you're watching a good flick. That's cohabitating, and that's necessary. That gives a sense of security in the relationship. You always want a great partner that you can cohabitate with, but that doesn't mean you're actually connecting. Connecting is talking about your emotions, even the hard emotions. Having the hard conversations, being able to like make eye contact and go, how are you really? Like, is there anything you need to talk about? So making eye contact and not having distractions. So during this time for all of you, whether you have an hour in the evening together or you both don't maybe have the opportunity to work right now all day, don't just cohabitate, actually dedicate time to connect. Anything that you would add?
Oh, I'm just thinking what you were saying. You know, attention is how you show love. And that's like a fundamental human being thing, right? Why is it that a child will jump in front of you when you're trying to talk to somebody, or they'll grab your foot? They're trying to get your attention because fundamentally that's how they feel love from you. So first of all, look to see, am I actually giving my full attention to my partner? If not, you can't have that full experience of love, and you can't have your partner feel fully understood if half of your attention, actually you can never really give half your attention. Your attention is either on one thing or it's on something else. So sorry. So that was the thing I was thinking of that you were talking about, is attention, right? Just notice, where's your attention now? Is it on the news? Is it on getting things done around the house? Is it on the kids? Is it around their homeschooling? Well, just start to look at how much attention you have on your partnership, on your spouse, on your marriage and the future, because that's going to be directly correlated to whether you actually strengthen or you strain it during this time.
I love it. So I did read your post. It was yesterday, I believe. It was beautifully done. I love that. And I think right now we are all consuming so much content, more than we ever will. I have created just kind of a side, me and my business partner, Yvette, called Uncut and Unleashed. It's just an IG Live, and it's a group for couples that are either they got affected during their weddings or maybe are planning engagement, and also for vendors, because there's not a place for that. And we're all kind of going through the change together, and some people have not been able to even express themselves or know how to express themselves or talk about it. So we've created that space to have couples, to have vendors, to really have anybody just come in and not go down the wrong rabbit hole of a group that really wasn't designated for that, or listening to advice that aren't from experts. So I really thought that this episode was going to be great for any couple. It doesn't matter if they're engaged, dating, living together. Really, couples are probably moving in together now because of what's going on. So I want to be able to have a couple of things already for them. I think the assessment, that's something that you guys already have up and going, because I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want to have something that's already done. I know you guys are having a virtual expo or a virtual workshop on April 19th.
So funny enough, with the stay-at-home order, we aren't able to go to the studio to do it live. However, we have the recorded couples workshop that was done in the studio. So it's super well done. The production, it isn't just us on the Zoom. It's, got slides, and we actually act out certain scenarios. Because I think a lot of times people talk about communication is key to a relationship, but that they don't know what that actually looks like and sounds like. And then what is the maybe not so right way to do that. So they can get access instantly to the recorded couples workshop. You just go to thecouplesworkshop.com, and we're running a special discount right now. So it's just a steal, honestly. So that's available, thecouplesworkshop.com. They can get a free hard copy of our book. They just cover shipping, which is awesome. And we have a whole book club with couples, and you can go to thenewpowercouple.com. And then what else? Any other resources?
Podcasts and YouTube. You have podcasts and YouTube.
Yeah, so our web show on YouTube, we like to call it like Netflix, but for your relationship. And so it's, again, really well done. We're all about how relationship content doesn't have to be boring. It can be engaging, entertaining. And so you can go to our YouTube channel. You just look up the Freeman's Relationship Experts. So video, audio on the podcast channel. So yeah, it'd be great if you include all those links.
I will. I think it's great that you have something for everyone, because YouTube, some people are going to want to be on that. Some people love Netflix. So I love that you related your show to Netflix. And we have audio. So if people are still working, they want to have a podcast in the background, I think that'd be great right now. Your book, so for people who read, and then your virtual workshop. So I will have all of those in the show notes. I definitely want to kind of do a follow-up. We'll look at our schedules. Let's see where we are, like maybe in 6 weeks. Because again, these are bonus episodes. We normally do 2 a month. Right now I'm doing like 4 to 6, all around just tools, resources, how you can strengthen your relationship, how you can kind of pause on the wedding planning industry used to be, because going forward, we may not even be able to have large gatherings. So really just giving them the correct information, moving along with the times, and having the experts on that can really help them get there.
Thank you for having us. This is an incredible conversation, and we're here for all of you as a couple. So anything that we can support you with, we respond to every DM that we get on Instagram at Meet the Freemans, and we're just here for you. And we have heard it all. So you literally can't come to us with a question that is weird or unique to you. And so you can reach out to us for anything. We've got your back. And just thank you for the work you're doing. You're doing amazing, amazing things in the space, and we're so grateful for this new relationship.
We love disruptors.
Yes.
I'm finding more and more of them, which I love as well. And before I get off, even though if some people aren't watching this, I want them to go watch it on YouTube, because the way you guys look at each other when you talk, it's respect to the relationship you guys have. So if you're not a YouTuber, this is the time to go and watch it, because every time Jocelyn speaks, Aaron's looking at her, and every time she speaks, you're looking at him. And I just think that that's a sign of, again, just respect and accountability and really understanding. And it shows what you're doing, shows everywhere you're at. Even if I don't see you guys now, I can picture that. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk to everyone soon.
Thank you.